Earthquakes and disaster zones. Little story from Houston, Pasadena, Houston Ship Channel in the past. Driving to work every morning for a couple of years. One morning you're driving into work and the road underneath you is swaying. You notice the whole horizon is rolling in very subtle waves. The reason you notice this is you're driving by massive storage oil tanks with level gauges on them, and you can see the gauges moving, undulating. You can see the tanks actually swaying. Acres and acres, miles and miles of facilities along the Houston Ship Channel experienced a wave in the sandy soil underneath the whole city of Houston. That wavefront, an earthquake wavefront, traveled from near Mexico City. The force was big enough to cause a sand wave. The energy from that caused huge oil fields to sway and tilt in the winds. This is the early 80s. You can go back and find the seismic event, the references to it. Now, none of those tanks fell down. Some of them may have cracked and started leaking, but there are safety devices and safety checks. So some of those might not have even been noted. They're just, normal operating procedures, and you go fix a cracked pipe because that's what happens. Remember, besides those, you've got miles of pipes connecting these plants amongst each other, above ground and underground. So that insignificant wave that rolled across the state of Texas from Mexico, a fence wouldn't have stopped that. So that was just a fact. That's something you can go back and find. That was a wave of energy from Mexico caused by an earthquake, which we know about, that flowed and caused the sands in our desert to act like water and actually have waves flowing across. So amazing. I mean, it's just the world, right? The planet, how it works. But inside of this, that wave front that traveled, it traveled everywhere. What other places were affected by it? If it had been a one factor higher earthquake in another country, could it have caused a whole tank farm to collapse, an older tank farm to collapse? Did it cause wellheads to break, drill rigs to have problems at the time that might have been working, and the shear forces that happened across the sands? You think of sands and sand dunes and the blowing winds. You just, until you're there. So that brought lots of questions. I was driving into my plant. The moment that happened, what goes on at those plants with process upsets, and many processes were upset, is you'll see the Houston, or actually the Houston Ship Channel, the whole Houston, matter of fact, the state of Texas, if you go to satellite views, turn on the flare stacks, those massive plant flare stacks. They're typically not run because they're a waste of heat that could be used somewhere else. But when they are run, they're designed for process upsets, process overflows, process changes maybe. They're run occasionally to burn off an accumulation. A tank will store a bunch of stuff until it's worth burning off. It might be decided to burn off at night or during the day, because if people see the black soot coming out of from those flames, they might get a little bit, they might begin to question. They might begin to worry a little bit. But as we know in Portland, what's a few heavy metals among friends? So, another story, another piece in history. Our plant shut down, had to be restarted. A restart takes anywhere from hours to days, depending on the length of the restart and how much you have to reheat back up. So, there's a story in time. An earthquake, a drive to work, made plastic for you. Hope you enjoyed. Peace out.